Well, it's the end of the week and a lot to talk about from around the NBA and certainly here in Philadelphia as well. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers podcast as we broadcast, all of us, remotely today from home.
Hold on. We're all wearing the same damn hat today.
Would you like me to go change my hat?
Before we got on, I need to go switch my hat out. This is I might actually, you know what? I can't do that.
Oh, somebody asked yesterday. They said they wanted the hat. So they see the hat.
That.
We all have the hat.
It's a fine hat. We all share. We're teammates. It's fine.
I guess, man. I guess that's just a little, a little Stepford Wives-ish, I think, coming on to the show to start today's episode. That's all.
It's the uniform, man. We got it.
I will say before we get into anything else, I do think we have to lead this off with the most important news of the past 24 hours. Kyle, I don't know if you're in a spot where you can take a bow, but after your performance last night at Papa Shot, you deserve every bit of it. I just want to say congratulations. That was a heck of a performance.
Oh, I thought we were going to talk about something much more serious. So that maybe we'll table that for later in the podcast. Yeah. But yes, I put up 126 points on our office Papa Shot machine. And because we were streaming remotely today, I get to carry that high score through the whole holiday weekend until at least Tuesday. Devon, I believe, is taking time off next week. So he has no chances to come for the king in the days ahead. So, it's nice to put up a score like that and have it be untouched for a while.
I felt bad for Devon because I was in a lead at 114 and then Devon tied it. And Devon tied it for like maybe 15, 20 minutes because then Kyle came through on legitimately the last game of the night. He said it was the last game. He was ready to walk out and he dropped a 126 on our butts. And honestly, it was impressive. And I think it's going to take a little while to beat that. So I just wanted to mention that right here at the top.
Look at that, a gracious competitor. And as I said to these two,
I'm bitter. I have to acknowledge your accomplishment.
Being bitter and being gracious are not necessarily exclusive. And I said to you guys yesterday, you've been pushing me on the scores. So brings out the best out of all of us. So when one of you inevitably puts up a 127 one day, I will be the maddest person in North America, except for all the people who are angrily tweeting at me today about Sao Paulo, Brazil. So until then, we got some basketball to talk about, I believe, at least at some point on this show.
Yes, we do. So we want to welcome everybody to the PHLY Sixers podcast on a Friday. And we're going to go around a lot of different things today. So be prepared to talk about quite a few things with Derek Bodner, Kyle Neubeck. I'm Devon Givens. Brianna is here. She's not on camera, but she is here as always with us on this Friday. A ton to get to. And Papa Shot is always fun, even when you get the separation is a little different than it once was. But hey, happy for teammates, uniform. We're all good. We're happy for them, even though we want to try to beat that score a little bit later.
I will say, not to spend too much time on Papa Shot, although it is Friday and we're talking about random stuff. Mm-hmm. The Sixers crew is far and away ahead of everybody else in the office. I do want to mention that. I think we are carrying our...
I mean, listen, if there was a hockey game and we were in first, I'd be making fun of the hockey guys. So we've done our job, right? That's all we've done so far. So if Jamie Lynch ever gets off his butt, for example, and backs up his trash talk that he's had about Papa Shot, maybe we'll
we saw a little bit of that yesterday before his show.
Yes, he stopped trash talking too.
Yes, he did. All right. Speaking of some competition and some competitiveness, did you want to at least start with the Yabusele a little bit just to get that off, to start things off, since it is a Sixers podcast? We'll get into a lot of different things, but Guerschon Yabusele had a chance to speak to the assembled media today for the first time since the signing became official by the Philadelphia 76ers. And Derek, you had a chance to, listen in on the things and what he had to say. We talked a ton about him and fitting in with the team and the excitement around not just us talking about it, but also the fan base bringing in a guy on a last minute contract signing. But hey, he's finally here. We finally had a chance to hear from him, not on social media. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think there were probably two, and this was only like maybe a 10-minute gathering with the media, so there's not any, super great insights. But I think my two major takeaways were, first of all, he was basically asked like how he's grown since coming to the NBA, and I think the easy answer would have been with the jumper. He went from being a 32% three-point shooter with the Celtics to a much better shooter there over in FIBA and European play. But, he basically said, like, yeah, I've grown as a basketball player, but really it comes down to the mental side of the court, mental side of the game, the way he controls himself, the way he reacts to situations. So it's basically, he said, it's been a learning, learning is why he's a better player, or his major growth area, at least. The other reason was, why the Sixers. He was specifically asked about his buyout, which again was a $2.5 million buyout. He's only able to make the minimum. Why did you make the sacrifice? And he basically gave two reasons. First of all, the Sixers believed in him. And the other one was what, we were talking about a couple weeks ago when we were debating, like, why would he even consider this? The reason he considers it is because this, hit strike while the iron was hot, basically. He said, I have the quote right here. Not a lot of people have a second chance in the NBA. When the opportunity comes, you don't think twice. So it seems like the chance to play in the NBA was weighing on him. He knew that coming off of that great Olympic performance, this was his opportunity. And even if he had to make a financial sacrifice, this was a way for him to get his foot back in the door, and he didn't want to miss that opportunity. And obviously, he talked all about, the Sixers and the chance to compete, and playing with Joel Embiid, and talking to Batum about it, talking to Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot, who's one of his good friends, about the Sixers and Embiid. So all of that factored into it. But it really did seem like this was just an opportunity to get back in the NBA, which I'm not sure he knew was going to come around, and he wanted, strike while the iron was hot and make the most of it.
Yeah, so thank you to, despite the fact that he left, Sixers sleeper agent Nick Batum for putting in a good word for the city of Philadelphia. And that was, look, Nico was very transparent about he did enjoy his experience there. I think all other things being equal, and I think if there were not some, let's say, understandings about wanting to finish his career and his family wanting him to finish his career out in LA, being set up out there, I think Nico might still be here as well. But yeah, excited to actually see Yabusele here. It is still a little weird and surreal that he is here after, being the star of the Olympics. And we spent a whole show basically being like, yeah, this guy's good and he fills a need, but no way he's coming for the minimum on a team that, doesn't look like there's necessarily that open of a spot for him. But I think, as we've talked about over the last, week and a half, whatever it might be, all the days are blending together in the deep off season for me. I don't know about you guys, but it just makes a lot of sense on the surface now that you think about it a little more. And we're already starting to pencil him in like he might be a regular rotation player right from the beginning, based on just the difference in his skill set to everybody else on the roster. So it seems like he's coming in with the right attitude. I like hearing all this stuff about, I've grown, I've matured mentally, and some of that is on the floor, right? But a lot of it, if we look back at his tenure in Boston, it's about, taking care of your body, doing the stuff you need to do away from the court to put yourself in the best position when you do play. So I hope everything he said today lines up with what we see and what comes moving forward, because there are, as we keep saying, 13, 14 guys who can probably play on this roster. You're going to have to deal with some ups and downs and some moments during the season where you don't play and you go from being like a top 3, at worst 4 player on a high level European team to, you're more like one of the guys here. So looking forward to seeing what he's got, and looking forward to seeing him bullying some guys down in the Bahamas in training camp when he gets a mismatch, because he won't get many post-up opportunities, I would assume, during real games. But I think we'll see some of those down there in the Bahamas.
So the one thing at the tail end of what Derek was saying about him not knowing when the opportunity would present itself again and when to make that call of which team to go ahead and join, that was something that I know we talked about when we explored the possibility a few days before it actually surfaced about him signing with the team, was when is he going to take the opportunity? The iron is hot right now, strike at that moment and join a team, whether it was Philadelphia or elsewhere. And that's exactly what it seems like, he did. He took advantage of the opportunity of playing in the Olympics, playing well, showcasing himself against not only the Team USA, but all the other teams that he played with, and had a pretty good run there in the pool play, especially the final 3-4 games where he looked really good. And for him to then choose this situation where it is so loaded, welcoming the competition, understanding that he is going to have to go out there and show why he belongs on the floor over some others. Now, the front court may not be all that deep because they don't have a lot of size. We've been talking about the power forward position for quite some time now, but it is talented where Nick Nurse can maneuver and throw so many different iterations of a lineup out there where it may cause him to stay stuck to a bench. But he welcomed the competition. He saw this as the best opportunity, having the chance also to play for a contending team in the Eastern Conference. That spoke to me a little bit, just of after us talking about it becoming official, and then hearing what he had to say today, and Derek saying that part, and that's pretty cool because, as we all talked about, the competition is going to be real. Kyle, you just mentioned him in the Bahamas bullying people. He's going to bully a lot of people with that frame that he has once he gets them on his back, and he has an opportunity to score on them on that low block. So now just waiting the chance to see what he does against this team, playing with Joel Embiid, the stuff that he mentioned about Batum and Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot, and how they did have some good things to say, especially with Luwawu-Cabarrot. He could have went in a lot of different directions with the way his career ended here in Philadelphia.
Bon, I was going to say, who would have ever thought that TLC would be a guy who'd help bring a player over to the
right,
given how his tenure here went.
Exactly. So that also just bodes well for how things went, the story of it all, and him choosing Philadelphia. So now it's just about, all right, got all the cool stuff out of the way. Signing is official. You get the jersey, pictures, the little video saying hello to Philadelphia, all of that stuff. But when it comes to work time, media day will also be fun, I'm sure, for him also. But once it's time to get to work, it's time to get to work. And where does he fit in? Still unanswered, but seems like he's going to go out there, compete. And he still looks to be in good shape from what we saw from the Olympics and what we saw him today, just the few pictures and all, and Derek seeing him. Still looks to be in pretty good shape. So it's a cool story. Seeing what he does is going to be fun.
And look, you just need like one real wild card on the roster. I think that's part of what makes Ricky a little bit intriguing. Like, he might end up not playing all that much, only spot minutes. We talked about that yesterday. He might end up popping and making a huge growth in his second year and coming out here and really playing a meaningful role. Yabusele is sort of like that too. Like, he might come over and the shot might not translate and maybe things don't work out and yada, yada, yada. That's fine. It was a minimum contract. Or he might really, the shot might translate. He can be a versatile defender, gives you more than you were expecting. Those wild cards, like, it's one thing to have someone, that has a little higher of a floor, but it's another thing to just have a little bit of excitement and uncertainty. And I think he brings that in a good way.
Yeah, because look, a lot of these guys on the roster are just, they're household names to some extent, right? Like, I mean, Kyle Lowry, he's very old. We know what we're getting out of him. Reggie Jackson, been around a long time. Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, a lot of Kelly is a wild card in some ways, but a more known quantity, certainly. And after getting him for a full season here with Joel Embiid, under Nick Nurse, next to Tyrese Maxey, there's not a lot of guesswork with what his game will look like. It'll be a version of the Kelly we saw last year and in years prior. Yabusele is a lot more of a wild card, and he's enough of one that reactions have been all over the place, from, well, he's just the 14th guy, to he signs and people are like, well, should he start? Like, he's a power forward. He's the only one they've really got. And, I said it at the time last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, as much as I want to say, no, like, that's just unreasonable. I was saying that kind of stuff with Kelly Oubre last year going into the season. Like, yeah, he's here on a minimum. He got signed super late. Don't put high expectations on him. And I'm still saying don't put high expectations on Yabusele. But because there is such a dearth of players like him on the roster, I don't necessarily want to put a ceiling on him yet. So I think that makes, as we we're going to dive deeper into, as we get closer to the year, some of these important preseason battles and roster battles, and, hey, who might be, seventh man, eighth man, like the guys who are firmly in the rotation, and who's going to win the bench athlete role. Like we talked about Ricky a lot yesterday. We've mentioned KJ Martin, like Yabusele, different player, but in a sort of a small group of those guys competing for similar roles, similar minutes. And so those guys are going to come out in late September, early October on a mission to make a statement right away. And so you brought up Yabusele's conditioning. I think that it demands that all these guys are going to have to come into camp ready to go. And that's good for everyone. Everyone's going to be, this last month or so before training camp, which we are only a month away from media day, by the way, as of today. These guys have to be in the gym, trying to get better, working on their bodies, going on runs, doing their cardio, getting in the pool, whatever it might be. I actually am interested to see, does anyone think Yabusele might make an appearance at a Rico Hines run in the weeks to come? Because they're not over. And this tends to be the time of the year that the vets start to come out and they participate in some of these at the end of the offseason. So I'd be interested to see what he would look like there. I would imagine he would bully a few guys and put that on tape if he makes it out there to LA.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Probably get off a lot of 3-point shots, though, in that open run like that also, especially since we're talking about that. Derek, he's wearing number 28 for the Sixers. Since you're the numbers guy, calculator.
Well, not the jersey numbers guy, though.
Guy, do you remember the last one? I think the last one to wear number 28 in the Sixers uniform.
I have no idea.
Was it the process Sixer?
Nah, not that I remember. The one that I remember specifically was in the early 90s, Charles Barkley trade. That's the hint I'm giving. Early 90s. Andrew Lang.
Wow. No,
I'm glad I forgot that one.
I don't remember anything about Andrew Lang's game outside of the fact that he sucked and the Barkley trade pissed me off.
Yeah. Yep. Number 28. Andrew Lang wore that for the Philadelphia 76ers. I don't remember a lot of 28s in the NBA, but I remember that one. I remember Ian Mahimi.
I just figured at some point they swapped so many guys in throughout the process.
No, you're right. It might be.
Probably.
When you have 30 players per year, like you're going to run through some numbers.
Yep. So, hey, someone might have worn 28 during the
Basketball Reference says no, that you're correct, Devon. It was Andrew Lang, and then there were 3 guys prior to him.
Okay.
Walt Wesley, Bud Ogden, and Bill Melchione are the only other 28s in Sixers history.
I've only heard of Bill Melchione of those 3, and I would have not have guessed 28 for him either. So that's the last one, 28. An odd number, but hey, that's the one he chose. I'm sure he has his reason. I remember what he wore, 30 with Boston, so wasn't available, or he just didn't want it for this particular run in the NBA. Get that green stink off of him and go with number 28 for the Philadelphia 76ers. Speaking of the rebuild and everything that took place with all the players coming through, one of the more unlikely guys of that rebuild has had a fantastic career. He was rewarded for that a little bit earlier today. We'll talk about him on the other side as we go around the league a little bit, pivoting from the current 76ers right here on the PHLY Sixers podcast. And I want to tell everybody about, this guy we're going to talk about in a little bit. He's going to have I'm sure he already has a good financial institution, but I want to tell him about our good friends at TrueMark Financial, where he can stash all that money and do it safely, feeling secure about his money. And also, if he wants to do something in the off season, now that he has a new deal in place, he can go out there and get some exercise in at the Care Foundation, hosting a charity pickleball event to raise money from our good friends at TrueMark Financial and their Care Foundation for financial education in our local communities. For those of you who are at the PHLY golf outing, you might remember our friends from TrueMark. This is to benefit their foundation charity. And if Bree wanted to say something, she would tell us about all the cool stuff that they gave away at the event at that time. Well, I'm sure they'll have some cool stuff there as well with all PHLY, getting the swag bag. Cost to play is $50 to benefit the charity. The event is on September 7th at Upper Dublin Sports Center in Ambler, PA from 1:30 to 5 p.m. A pickleball pro, a certified pro, will be on site to overview the game for anyone who's never played.
Who gives out those certifications, Devon?
Hey, I don't know. Maybe we need to ask.
There's like an international governing body of pickleball that gives that out. Is it a university accreditation? I need to know. I got to do.
Yeah, how many pickleball minutes do you have to log to become that certified pickleball pro to be able to? Good question. I don't know, but we're gonna have to figure that one
We'll
out.
find out next weekend when we're there.
September 7th. So if you're there, you'll see everybody there with the paddles and the pickleballs. They'll be available use for free. Of course, if you want to get your company involved, sponsorship wise, have your logo on display at the event. They're selling a variety of sponsorships from $200 to $1,000 if you want to get involved that way. Even if you don't play pickleball, you can still be at the event. Food, beer trucks on site, and a percentage of the proceeds will go to charity. 50-50 raffles, lawn games, cornhole, music will be played, more fun prizes and giveaways as well. Best part, as a PHLY fan, you can get a 10% discount on registration. Just register right now at truemark.com/PHLY pickleball.
And guys, you might need your phone to register for some pickleball. You might need your phone this weekend, celebrating the holidays, getting in touch with your loved ones, your friends, your family. Maybe you're just calling a restaurant, trying to get a reservation somewhere. Whatever. You need good cell service and you need it for cheap. Mint Mobile and my friend, my close personal friend, Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds, have you covered at $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. So say goodbye to your current overpriced wireless plan that has jaw-dropping monthly bills and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at $15 a month. Every single one of those plans comes with high-speed data, unlimited talk and text, and it's all on the nation's largest 5G network. So you get everything you want in a phone plan. You get great coverage. I made the switch with Mint this summer. My coverage there has been better, including in places like, for example, my house has some dead spots. I've been able to get coverage in my house that I was previously not able to. So it has improved my day-to-day life switching to Mint Mobile, and that's before you even have to think or talk about the cost of the bill, which is next to nothing at $15 a month. So I want you guys to get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month. Go to mintmobile.com/Sixers. That's mintmobile.com/Sixers. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Sixers. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details. Man, I nailed that disclaimer. That was the best one yet.
You're a pro. You're certified. You've already logged enough hours.
I am a certified disclaimer reading pro. How about that? Accredited by PHLY.
Rick Moore says Ryan Reynolds is an honorary friend of the show. Well, he's also a part of it with the Mint Mobile. So yes, absolutely, Rick. And we really appreciate it.
Can anyone hear my dog losing his mind on the other side of this door right now? Because he's having a moment for some reason that is unclear to me until after the show is over.
All right. Well, talking about, again, 2 phones when you have a lot of money. Maybe you want to have 2 phones or need a financial institution like TrueMark. TJ McConnell, we just spoke about everything with the
TJ 2 phones.
TJ 2 phones, man. He's going to need it because he just got rewarded and got paid a 4-year extension with the Indiana Pacers. And the crazy part for me was this, that we always think about him, of course, because of how long he spent here in Philadelphia. He's now been in Indiana for some years now, where they obviously look at him and he's theirs. He's no longer just the 76ers. He's really a part of that Indiana foundation of what they're doing. He's a big part of what they do, rewarded with a 4-year deal, $40+ million. So he's made some decent money for a guy, Kyle, who came out of nowhere, wasn't sure if he was even going to make the team. He thought he was going to get cut and during that his first time here with Brett Brown and crew. And man, has he really earned every penny that he has gotten in. Good for him, TJ McConnell.
Yeah, look, and I think importantly, this should be obvious based on the deal he just got. He also has just gotten better as a player over the years. It's mostly been mastery of what he was already good at, right? Like it wasn't like, oh, TJ all of a sudden became a high volume 3-point guy or grew 4 inches and now he can defend wings or whatever. He plays excellent, maybe sub-elite point of attack defense. He's a good distributor. He's one of those guys that just pops up in the right places, especially after made baskets. him and Jose Alvarado are basically in a class of their own as inbound thieves, where he just comes out of nowhere and whoop, there you go, quick bucket or a quick assist to somebody else on the perimeter after he does that. So he's great at that. He loves the Steve Nash under the basket, like drive to the rim, don't shoot, do the U-turn, and then distribute the ball back out to the perimeter. He's got a working mid-range shot. I think last year was his best season, or close to his best season as a shooter from all areas of the floor ever. He shot like 55.5%, something like that. And really feels at home in this Indiana team under Rick Carlisle, where they just want to play pace. And he's comfortable in that type of setting as the guy who can take it, lead the break, the guy who will set you up in the half court if it doesn't pull off in that way. And obviously, like, having gotten to know TJ while he was here, having covered him for a little bit, you feel really good for a guy like that, who he was there during the single worst season that any of us have been alive for, right? So a lot of the talk at the time was like, oh, you need more veterans because you can't let these guys pick up losing habits and blah, blah, blah. And, maybe that ends up being true for some guys. TJ was just, blinders on, so like not fazed by anything going on around him, and came in with the same type of attitude every single day, no matter what the score was, no matter who they were playing. And I think you've seen now how that has paid off, right? Like the level of consistency that he brought as a competitor every single day is what brought him to this point. So obviously what I think is a feel-good story, right? Like, guy barely makes the league and then turns into, he's going to be like a 10-year vet having made like $90 million or something crazy, which is just, that's unfathomable given when we were watching him at the time, all these guys going in and out of the lineup in 2015, 16, and TJ emerges as one of the great success stories of that period.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this is a guy who, based on physical profile, has almost no business being in the NBA. Just in terms of his size, his speed, like, he's not elite at really anything physically. He's not a, deadly shooter from the perimeter to make up for it. He got there because he worked his butt off, and he plays hard pretty much every time he steps on the floor. And that kind of consistency has earned him a lot of money. And it really is a fun story. It's something Kyle's mentioned this in the past, but I think people like rooting for people who we look at and we go like, they don't look that different than me. Like, a lot of the people that dominate the NBA, they look like superheroes. And, I think part of the reason Steph Curry was so popular is because he looked at least like normal height and normal build. Kyle has always brought up,
funny because I like to throw water on that a little bit, like son of an NBA player.
Right. He had opportunities that.
Well, yes, more relatable to an everyman than LeBron or whoever.
Where I was getting at, TJ is even more relatable because he wasn't born to an NBA family. Like, he didn't have a chance to spend his entire life growing up around the game with no real feel of failure because he didn't have that financial security. He's not one of the best shooters to ever play. He looks like somebody that you picked up off the bar. And now look, he's 6'2", 6'3". He's quicker than ever. He's still in the top tier athletically, but not so far that you can't at least relate to it. And he really did, like I said, just get there through hard work, through determination, through consistency in his effort. And he's a good guy, and it's good to see him rewarded for it. I'm not sure I'd want that contract because he's going to be being paid until he's 37 by the end of it, but I'm very happy for him.
Man, I didn't even think
Darkness
about that.
He's
so old at this point.
He's older than you think. Yeah,
he was a senior. Yes, coming out of Arizona, he was a senior. Kyle Darkness asked, does he pass the height test, the Kyle Neubeck height test?
Well, listen, it's a different team, right? So I'm not sure. What is TJ's actual? I think I'm taller than TJ. If I remember correctly.
Well, Derek, you just said 6'3.5", maybe somewhere around there. So I would say 6'2".
I was thinking 6'2". It's right around there.
Yeah, 6'2", 6'3".
Basketball Reference says 6'1", so I need to find what his actual measurements are. That's the key, because all these. Even though the NBA was like, oh, we're going to try to regulate this, I still feel like there are some shenanigans afoot when it comes to. What guys are chalking or clocking in.
Yeah, what was the one at the draft?
He was under 6'1" he was under 6'1" without shoes, 6'2" with shoes.
Okay. All right. So yeah, he does not pass the Kyle Neubeck height test, but he plays for the Pacers. So it doesn't really matter.
Right. He's not playing next to Tyrese Maxey. That's the difference.
And he plays bigger than his height. So the guy, look, man, just seeing him from the very beginning, as we all have, all three of us being around him and just talking about how cool the guy is too. And speaking again, he thought he was going to get cut when he was first here that first year. He did not think he was going to make the team. He thought when they were getting ready to come talk to him that he was getting his walking papers, and he was able to stick around, make some key baskets. We still see that shot against the Knicks along the baseline, and that great photo of Joel basically choking him right there after making that shot against the Knicks. That's one that so many people still reference back to. The fact that he still has the relationship here with the Sixer fans when he comes to town is really cool. And it's a really great story. The guy's a good guy, just a really cool dude. Anytime you ask him for anything, he was always readily available. Kyle just talked about him, just speaking to him in the locker room. Never say no. He would, he just never says no. He was always willing to talk about basketball. He was willing to talk about anything else. And so when you see a guy like that come from where he came from, leaving Duquesne, right? Smaller program, going to a bigger program at Arizona, starring there at Arizona with other players who were had bigger star names than he did. And he's the one that has had the longevity in the NBA, fighting and scratching and clawing literally his way to where he is right now. And you said it, $90 million for TJ McConnell over the course of the life of his career. I would have never guessed that. And even thinking back to last season, where they were talking about, should he be traded to the Phoenix Suns to be their starting point guard? Should he be traded to this other franchise to be their starting point guard? That's how much the NBA thinks about him, his style of play, how he adapts to the environment, the team that he's with, and makes them better, being able to run the team the way that he does. That's just a testament, again, to the hard work that he has put in to be in this spot. And even though he's with the Indiana Pacers, as you said, guys, earlier, it's hard not to root for him for all the stuff that he's done to get to this point.
Okay, so I have a TJ anecdote from the locker room from a story I did years ago. So I don't know if either of you remember this. I used to log, you know how they play music every time
I remember this.
Offensive possessions.
Yep.
So I logged for about let's say a season and a half, every result of every possession during whatever song that was playing. So, for example, one of the most successful ones was whenever they played Candy Shop by 50 Cent, it was almost guaranteed the Sixers were going to score. Now, again, this was just a goofy thing. It's like, I'm not actually saying 50 Cent impacted the Sixers offense. I'm just telling you what the data said about when this certain music was playing. And I did. You
might argue that he impacted the results, though.
It is possible. So there was one song, Nothing But a G Thing by Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, where every possession was basically either a TJ McConnell turnover or a TJ McConnell missed shot. And I was like, come on, I got to talk to this guy about this. So I pulled him aside in the locker room and I'm showing him the data. He's like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I can't believe you did all this. And I was like, all right, I got some bad news. And I told him about the Dr. Dre thing. He goes from like laughing and joking to like the stone cold serious you see on the court. And he just goes, they better not ever play that effing song ever again. He goes, it's got to go tomorrow. I'm talking to the DJ. And he just like lost it, went into full like competitive red-faced TJ mode. And like that, the thing with all these guys, right? Like the guys who are real competitors, it's such a stupid thing, right? Like that's something that means absolutely nothing. It was like 5 times in the span of a year and a half, he like turned the ball over during this song. And he was like, I banned the song from Philadelphia for the rest of my life. That's how he's wired. And to me, it's just an example of like, that's why he has lasted, because every single thing that could be a factor of winning, he considers it and he attacks at all times. So I had other moments with TJ, but that's the one that always jumps out for me.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Well, I mean, give the ball up. When you hear the song now that you have the data from Kyle, give the ball up. Just go run in the corner, man. Give it to Joel. Go run in the corner. And next time you hear it again, do the exact same thing to save your stats, to make sure they look good in that case. But yeah, man, I mean, look, and the Indiana Pacers are going to be good. We've been talking about them. We mentioned them in our conversation in one of our shows where we looked at the competition in the Eastern Conference for the Sixers and the Indiana Pacers with TJ, of course, led by Tyrese Halliburton, getting Ben Mathurin back. They really have something going there with Rick Carlisle's team. And man, he's a big part of it, man. He was huge, especially when Tyrese Halliburton had to miss those games against the in the postseason, and he and Nembhard are the backcourt, or even when Nembhard was struggling. Rick Carlisle, yep, all right, cool. Call TJ's number and let's get this thing situated. And he just gets under your skin and plays the way that he does. And the Indiana Pacers are going to be good. They're going to be fun. The style of play is cool. And it doesn't even really feel like he fits their style of play, but he does, because he likes to push the pace, get up and down the floor, pick up 75 feet away from the basket, make things miserable for the opposing point guard, and just do the TJ McConnell stuff.
No, he would be so annoying to play against. He wouldn't let you get a dribble in. He would be so annoying.
Yep. So you know how it goes. Oh, I can score against him. Okay, cool.
No, you couldn't.
No, you could not. Not against that guy.
TJ would be making you slap your chair that you went to sit on the sideline after he beat you badly.
Yeah. Or just simply want to fight him if you want to do that because of it. All right, when we come back on the other side, we got to talk about some other stuff around the NBA, like another Eastern Conference team made a little bit of an addition earlier in the week that quietly went away. So we're going to talk about that on the other side here on the PHLY Sixers podcast.
Just want to make sure to remind you that we have a PHLY Eagles watch party coming up here next Friday, September 6th at Tradesman. There is a $4 all-you-can-eat buffet. It includes chicken tenders, mac and cheese, pulled pork sliders, pretzel bites, waffle fries, and more. You get 3 drink tickets along with that. If you need more than that, there's $5 Miller Lights, a $30 Miller Lite bucket, and other drinks there. Go to allphly.com/events. And if you're a diehard member, which everyone watching here should be, you get 20% off of that event as well. Make sure to log in when you go to allphly.com/events to check that out. Happy to have live events back in our lives.
Yeah, top tomato last night for the PHLY Phillies crew, and now Tradesman with the Birds taking on Green Bay next Thursday. A week from today, we get football back, at least here. Is the 6 days away from the start of the actual season. Thursday night, KC and Baltimore, and then we get this Brazil game where it seems to be a lot of stuff going on with this Brazil conversation. Although we are a basketball podcast, we like sports, man, and we like football. And boy, is this one really taking off with the conversation with Brazil, and they can't do this over there, and they can't do that over there. AJ Brown saying, I'm staying in my room, all kinds of stuff. It's going to be a fun time over there in Brazil. Hopefully they get a W, though. Hopefully they do.
You have any thoughts on that, Kyle?
I do. As the resident traveler of the group, I would say.
Yes, you are.
That, so look, I can understand. I'm sure AJ and Devontae and these guys came out of an NFL security type meeting and they got read the riot act, right? It's the same.
Big Dom spoke.
Hey, listen, don't do this, don't do that. And like when you actually look at, I'm going real deep down the rabbit hole here. If you go on like the U.S. state advisory travel stuff for basically any foreign country, the list is almost always the same. It's don't wear gaudy jewelry. Don't go expect if you're using public transportation late at night that it's higher risk. It's like anything you would tell a woman in any major city in the entire world. Like, don't be by yourself at night in an unfamiliar area. Like, try to have people aware of where you are and where you're going and have an emergency contact. And it's just like what they're telling them in Sao Paulo or before they go to Sao Paulo is not that different from almost anywhere in the world you would go. And people try to be like, well, you can't wear green because of a local soccer rivalry. And I was like, dude, you guys try to make a show out of the fact that people shouldn't wear Cowboys jerseys during Eagles Cowboys week in Philadelphia. And like people would say about traveling to Philadelphia, like, oh, what about Kensington? Like Kensington's in Philadelphia. Like that's some reason to dunk on the city, or like you shouldn't go there. And Philadelphia is a war zone, says a person who never comes into the city in the first place. So all I'm saying is like, there's nothing that unique about this Brazil situation. And in fact, if you go to, I'm kidding, I'm not kidding, go do this yourself after the show. You don't have to believe me. Go to the UK's state travel advisory and go look at the first thing that comes up in their security measures page, because at the very top of it, it says terrorists are very likely to try and carry out attacks in the US. So the first thing they tell you about traveling to the United States is, hey, somebody might commit an act of terrorism in a public place while you're there. And so all these people are like, oh, you might get a pickpocket, or there are people who commit crime in Brazil. It's like, yeah, and that happens everywhere. Like, step outside of your house, act like a normal person, go to a place where you're a visitor, not a resident, and be respectful of other people's customs, traditions, and whatnot. You're going to be fine. And I'm sure most of the people that are actually going to Brazil are not, all panicking and screaming on social media and, oh my God, why are they playing the game there? It's just been a very annoying discourse. And I don't really blame AJ, because those guys are not traveling to Sao Paulo. Like the AJ Brown's version of a off-season vacation is like going to an all-inclusive in some place where you don't have to actually go anywhere except for the resort, right? You don't see these guys trekking through the mountains or in some podunk rural town in a foreign country. So you will have a good time. Don't be stupid. That's how you travel. There's my there's my PSA for our Friday heading into Labor Day weekend.
And if you're not traveling, you don't have to worry about that. You just go to Tradesman's, watch the game, watch
Exactly.
the PHLY Eagles.
If you're that worried, just go to a bar.
And you can wear your green there. No worries at all. Just don't wear Packers green and you'll be all right. Maybe don't wear Celtics green either, Derek, because now with Lonnie Walker, a local guy, being from the area, Reading, he's now a member of the Boston Celtics on another one-year deal for a young talented scorer in this league. And I'm sure a lot of the folks in this area are going to be rooting for him, not necessarily because of the green, just simply because he's in the uniform. That said, they just add another piece to come off their bench, Derek, that while it may not be perfect in a lot of different situations, they are the defending champs, and they just simply have added another talented piece to their roster.
Yeah, and we talked about Lonnie a little while back when the Sixers signed Reggie, and I think I probably would have preferred Lonnie here. So for the Celtics to get him and to get him on a two-way, like, it's surprising. It's surprising. I don't know if there's like so many medical red flags that teams just weren't willing to commit anything to him. But he has, a little bit of size, can defend, can shoot a little bit. Like I certainly would have valued him higher than it seems the league valued him, which makes me wonder what's going on and what don't we know about. But I think the Celtics are the perfect team to take that risk. They have so much depth, and if he pops, great. If not, no harm, no foul. I'm surprised.
Yeah, I don't really get this on basically any level that Lonnie Walker was this low on options that he took an Exhibit 10, which is, I mean, in most cases, that says to you, that guy's just getting cut, right? Like he's getting cut and he'll be on the G League team. It's not if you hear like normal, partial guarantee, non-guaranteed deal, it's like, okay, we'll see if it works out. Exhibit 10s tend to be, we're just giving you some money to come to training camp and then sending you.
And my apologies, I misspoke and I said two-way. I meant Exhibit 10. Exhibit 10 is like Kyle mentioned. You basically get a little bit of a bonus to come to training camp. Usually they get cut, and when they get cut, you have their rights in the G League. So I think that's how my brain got scrambled there. But yeah. I did misspoke, so I apologize.
So that's the part I was confused by, right? Like I assume he could get a minimum from most of the league, but if he's taking an Exhibit 10, that doesn't really track, I guess. I don't know if there's some are there like off-court things that we're not aware of that are,
No.
because I will say when he was in the draft process, as he got talked about somewhat as a potential Sixers guy, there were a few people who were like, nah, I think Lonnie needs to get away from home for a little bit. But I don't think that's unique to him, right? There's a lot of guys that right around the time they're drafted, there's they could play for their hometown team or close to their hometown team because he's from Reading, which, not exactly in Philadelphia, but close enough. And that's not an uncommon thing for people to feel like, nah, he probably just needs to separate from some people and just like get away and be like his own person for a little bit. Like, I think that's probably true of most people in life, right? You want to step out and become your own person, and then you can come back to somewhere like Philly, wherever it is around the league. But I have heard nothing since to suggest anything other than Lonnie is a good teammate, like played in some big games, quite frankly. A couple years ago with LA, like had I think he had like a 15-point game in a Lakers win during that playoff run, and was, they spoke pretty highly of him there. So I'm not really understanding this at all. I think he's got a diverse enough skill set offensively too that, does he prefer to be on the ball? Yes. Can he play off the ball? Also, yes. Like, he's a good enough catch and shoot type guy to be a combo guard without being a high level playmaker. So I just don't really understand a guy who's like 6'4", 6'5", and has multiple skills, doesn't have any personality red flags that we're aware of, no work ethic red flags that we're aware of. Taking an Exhibit 10 just seems crazy to me. I don't know if it's about him or more so, league-wide factors, but this one was a just bizarre one, I thought.
Yeah, especially the Exhibit 10 part. The Boston thing didn't surprise me just because it's like, all right, the rich get richer and they add another young talent late in the game and they pick up a solid player. Maybe he benefits from winning, and is able to get something next summer if it works out that way with the Boston Celtics. But it was the Exhibit 10. This guy is way better than that. And even though he was with the Brooklyn Nets last season, and as you said, the Lakers the 2 years before that, and had a big game, it was the Lonnie Walker game in a sense, just because he helped them close out and secure that particular game, that victory in that playoff series. So this one is surprising to me because he's still 25, 26 years old. He's been in the league long enough where if those red flags were there, Kyle, they would have been already out there and spoken about many times. And I've never heard anything about it. And even being, the Brooklyn part, nothing. It was Lonnie as cool as ever. And nothing there with Lonnie Walker. So this one's surprising to me as far as the Exhibit 10 piece of it, because he's still, even though he has been on these 1-year deals year after year after year, which is still surprising, the Exhibit 10 part is the tough part, because this guy, all right, give him another 1-year deal. That's how good he is. And as Derek talked about, we spoke about him at length when the things started to dwindle with the free agent names. He was still on our list. I had to update the list the other day and take him off finally because he's with Boston now. And this one, though, shocking that it was an Exhibit 10. He's just, to me, he's just too good for that. I don't think he belongs on an Exhibit 10. Should he make the team? They don't have anybody coming off their bench, though, that does what he does. They have other specialists there that do different things. Sam Hauser is the shooter. Xavier Tillman now, they brought him back. Luke Cornett, having him back off the bench. Al Horford, of course, off the bench whenever Kristaps Porzingis is back. But somebody who does what he does, able to score off the bench, it is something that they don't have that he offers. And maybe, I don't know. This one was surprising. It was surprising.
I think to that point, Devon, and Derek also mentioned maybe there's a medical thing we don't know about, but I feel like that would also be out there as well, right? Like at least in some form.
And there certainly were. I remember coming into the draft, there were some medical concerns, and then he had that injury for the Spurs his rookie year. But for the most part, he hasn't been completely healthy, but he hasn't had really devastating injuries since then. So you would think that would just kind of like be baked into his his back of his baseball card, unless there's something new that we just don't know about, but that seems unlikely.
Yeah. So ruling all this other stuff out, or just saying, we don't know what we don't know on this one. I do get like why he would want to go to Boston, because to your point, Devon, there is probably a spot for him to actually get minutes and contribute. And on top of that, he wants to win. Clearly, like he wants to be on a team that has a chance to win a title. That tends to help guys like him, like help the role players, right? Like we've seen it many times over the years. If you're on one of those conference finals type teams as a role player and you have a good season, you're constantly productive and you're about the right things, right? And, if we assume that Lonnie's got his head on straight, and I think we all think he does, he's going to get good reviews coming out of Boston, then, maybe there's a future payday there. Yes, it's absolutely the confusing part is the Exhibit 10. If he had taken a 1 year minimum guaranteed, like, okay, like I think Lonnie Walker might be worth a little bit more than a minimum if you were actually paying him what he's truly worth. But it's more so that he has no guarantee coming out of training camp. That's crazy. Like at his age, with his skill set, I'm not trying to, and I'm not doing the Chris Palmer, Evan Turner, well, now they're unbeatable thing because they got Lonnie Walker. Something is not adding up here on this. So, I mean, great job by Brad Stevens and the Celtics for convincing Lonnie and his representation that this was the way to go. I was shocked by this because I saw he signed there and I was like, okay, makes sense. 1 year, prove it, all that. And then Exhibit 10, I almost threw my phone in disgust. I'm like, man, Celtics are just nailing it these days.
Yeah. And I do wonder, we spoke a lot in the spring leading up to the summer about how the new salary cap and all the aprons and whatnot were going to cause sub-stars to be squeezed. And certainly Lonnie is well below star. I do wonder if at some point the pendulum has swung too far and a year or two now, GMs are like, man, I know we really needed to, save all of our resources for stars and try and stay under these aprons, but like maybe we're completely missing out on role players because of it. But I'm really curious, I guess what I'm saying is over the next 24 or so months, whether or not there's a correction here, because I feel like it's swung even, and as someone who spent legitimately months and months and months telling you to be warned that like these middling players are going to get squeezed, they're being squeezed more than I ever imagined. And I wonder if it's going to swing back eventually. I feel like we're all kind of navigating how to build a team in the new CBA structure.
They got a guy on the Exhibit 10, and I forgot about Peyton Pritchard as Neil Deaver brings him up. I forgot about him coming off the bench, but I mean, he's coming off the bench with Peyton Pritchard potentially, if it works out that way. And then even if they put him in the game where Drew Holiday is in the backcourt with him, or Derek White is in the backcourt with him, that's a pretty good guy to have in the backcourt with those two, as they are unselfish the way that they are and how they operate, and try to get him going a little bit on the offense. But Celtics did that, and we had to bring it up. Going around the league today, we go out west and talk a little bit about another guy, though, that I guess I'm not surprised about this, getting a 1 year extension with the Golden State Warriors for $62 million on a 1 year deal. And boy, was that a hefty number. I didn't know what to expect on the 1 year deal when I saw that, hey, all right, he signed a 1 year deal, and you keep reading and it says $62 million. I was like, damn, okay. 1 year, $62 million, Derek.
Yeah, this is the other end of the equation with the new CBA and the increasing salary cap. Like it's going to keep going up 10% every year, and those contracts are just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're going to see $70 million and $80 million. And eventually we're going to get the $100 million a year. We just all kind of have to get used to that. And for a guy in Curry, and look, he'll be, I think, 38 because he's still got 2 years left on his current deal. They tacked on one more at the end. So he will be making, $65 million at the age of 38. And that's sort of the cost of doing business with star players in the NBA, especially one who's meant as much to the franchise as Steph Curry has. But yeah, these numbers are going to be shocking for quite a while, I think.
I wouldn't say I'm stunned that he signed an extension. I will say, coming out of the Olympics and looking at the Warriors situation, I'm surprised Steph is not leaving more of a door open to be like, I could be the one team man my whole career, but I also could go somewhere where I have a chance to win in a few years. Because I don't know. It just seems like there was something that unlocked in his brain this summer playing with LeBron where he was like, do I really have to go through the next few years with, Clay's gone, Draymond's kicking people in the nether region. I have, D'Anthony Melton, and like that's great if it pans out. And I don't know. It's just a lot of ifs, ands, and maybes. And maybe Kuminga is eventually a guy, and maybe Steve Kerr eventually thinks Moses Moody should play every game, but probably not. Kevon Looney's like 600 years old and can't move anymore. Although he actually
Buddy Hield,
isn't that old.
Buddy Hield is now a splash brother. So there's
yeah,
that.
I don't know. I just feel like it was just a weird vibe seeing how happy he was all summer. And then having watched last year, watched recent Warriors seasons where I think you could see the toll it has taken on Steph at times in recent years. And, you know, you could say that's the cost of success, right? This is not a league that right now is designed to have long dynasties. They did it about as well as you probably possibly can in the current CBA environment. And now this is what happens at the end. So good for him for getting this giant payday. And I'm happy for Warriors fans that it does seem that he's going to ride off into the sunset as a forever Warrior. And you don't get many of those stories anymore. So that's very cool. I just was a little surprised. That's all.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, like if he were 32 signing this 1 year extension, you go, all right, well, if things aren't working out in Golden State, he can just force his way off. But at 38 years old, making $65 million, that might be a little tougher to force your way to a contender at that point. So yeah, there's a risk of him being stuck in purgatory. But I guess when you're one of the few modern dynasties in the sport, you can probably deal with that.
No, he's not really a splash brother, Buddy Hield. I just said it just to say it since he's now out there in Golden State, Winona. So absolutely not. He's not really a splash brother. But the stuff coming out of there, as you bring it up, Kyle, a lot of people talking, will he try to force his way to Los Angeles now to go play with LeBron as he closes out his career because of the stuff that he might have unlocked, as you said there. The people bringing up the fact that he had taken all this stuff down from the Warriors on his social media. I didn't care enough to go check, but that was out there that he did something like that. And it was that some fracture now with the organization as he's ticked off that Klay Thompson is left and the rest of the roster is not good enough. So yeah, all of that stuff plays into it and thinking at this age, would he do it? But I never thought, I still never look at him and think, oh, I'm just going to go back to Charlotte so I can play 1 year in my final year at home or go somewhere else to win a championship. He just seems like he's a Warrior and he's going to stay a Warrior his entire career, even with having that type of experience with the Olympic team and LeBron James. I just never looked at him as a guy who would leave Golden State for anything. No.
I didn't think so. I just, there were parts of me this summer that was like, would I be stunned? No. So, again, I think really the headline for me is happy for him and Warriors fans to have, because this will now be a very unique and special player fan base relationship that we don't get many of anymore. So I think that's very cool, if nothing else. And, we'll see what happens with the Light Years gang out there in Golden State over the next few years. So good for him for his generational wealth that he continues to build.
Now,
as close to 500 million now, and is just in basketball earnings.
He, Kevin Durant, and LeBron James, all 500 million in basketball.
Like that, there is no ceiling on what you.
No, man, no. So Ramid says maybe LeBron will eventually try to force his way to Golden State now after getting a taste of playing with Steph. So we'll see. The storylines are fun, man. They're going to be funny. But that'll do it for us on this Friday, and we appreciate everybody hanging with us as always on YouTube, on Roku TV, hanging out with us on this Friday. It's time for our world famous roll call at the end of the week. At the end of the week,
for stopping through, saying hey, saying hello. I will not be shouting out anyone with Riley Cooper avatars screaming at me today on Twitter. I will be shouting out all of our friends here, like Eugene Ross, like my guy Darkness, like
whoa, let me turn the lights out.
Valhos, Phi Chi, my girl
Phi
Winona.
Chi. Hey Nona.
Bootzilla, we got Ramid, as you just
Boots
said, on Dave Dewar. We got Jess with that purple heart.
Happy birthday, Jess.
Oh, it's Jess's birthday? Look
tomorrow,
at that.
She put it in the chat. Happy birthday, Jess, tomorrow.
Jess, you enjoy your holiday weekend and enjoy your birthday. It's nice when all those things come together. People are spending the whole weekend celebrating your birthday. Look at that. Thank you also to Joe Tiz Tony C. Prophet 1.
What
My
up,
guy,
Prophet?
Dean Ross, the king of the exclamation point.
Gene.
I did not see shocker of the century, our guy Martian Lynch in here today. I'll give him a shout out anyway, just because that's the
Early
type
weekend.
of guy I am.
Early
Everybody
weekend.
else who was in here today. Oh, no, that's not true. I do see him. Saw him earlier. Rick Morse, Randy Rubart, a few others. Thank you all. Subscribe,
Thank you,
hit the bell
everybody.
icon, hit the thumbs up button, and enjoy your holiday weekend, gang.
Thank you, Bree.